Hey friends, welcome to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. Well, we made it. We are on episode 3 of the 3-part series about faith and freedom, where we spoke with women veterans from across the country who are carving out their niche in the business and consulting world. And I would just like to say, I have had the most amazing time talking and learning from these women who are uniquely themselves, who strive to give the best that they have to the world every day, and to lean into their faith just as a part of their whole life and their mindset and their ministry. And so it was just a blessing to dive into these conversations with these great ladies. This is the 3rd episode, and today I'm talking with Mindy Morris. She and I share a good friend who connected us, which I'm very thankful for. And we had a candid conversation about her Air Force career and also her experiences as a coach and a writer and an artist, and some of the hard stuff about her diagnosis with metastatic breast cancer in October of 2021, how she medically retired, and how she's navigating that space and really trying to allow her emotional intelligence and faith to be infused in every day. And so every day has meaning. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Mindy and I chatting about her experiences and her life and all the lessons that she offers to the world. So grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage of choice, maybe some tissues, I'm not sure, and let's get started. Doing things alone is entirely overrated. We all need a community to thrive. And that's why I'm part of an online community of writers and speakers, podcasters, and entrepreneurs called Creatives. And I love it. In the years since I joined this community, I've launched new ideas, and I finally executed the dreams that sat on the shelf for years. Seriously. And I was able to do this because of the outstanding group of mentors, exceptional training, and encouraging mastermind groups with my new friends who did and continue to give me invaluable feedback. Oh, and not to mention all the fun, because we have had lots and lots of fun. Have you ever said, I want to write a book? Or do you want to use your voice for the exciting world of podcasting? If so, Called Creatives is your best resource for up-to-the-minute industry training, expert advice, live coaching, and peer support like no other. Best-selling authors and speakers Allie Worthington and Lisa Whittle lead this community with a no-competition mission, and it shows. So join my friends and I in the Called Creative community. Head to my show notes, danitacummins.com/podcast, and click the link to get all the details to join. I promise you won't regret it. I look forward to seeing you in the community and watching you grow. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on the Entrusted to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Danita Cummins, and today on this episode, we are doing part 3 in our series about faith and freedom, where I am joined with these amazing women veterans from all over the country who are living out their passion, who are using their military experiences and their faith to really go out into the world and make a positive difference. And so today, my guest is Mindy Morris. She's the owner of Start With Self, LLC, and she is very passionate about helping train and encourage others. She has quite a variety of diverse backgrounds. She's going to share that with you today. But her Start With Self efforts are really to help coach individuals and teams so that they can better understand their self in order to live their best life, which is something that I'm super passionate about. So Mindy, thanks so much for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I listened to your Entrusted to Lead podcast when my friend Jennifer told me about it to see if we would be a right fit for each other. And I love your authentic conversations and celebrating people's journeys and desire to bring hope to listeners. It really resonated with me. And I echo your desire to make the world a better place. So thank you so much for making this space for me.
Oh, that's super sweet. I forgot to mention that when we talked on the phone. That is right. Jen connected us, and shout out to Jen because I hope she's probably listening. Who knew that our worlds would collide like they did? Yeah, I've known her my whole life, my whole adult Air Force life. You know, we've been roommates a handful of times in our different seasons of our life, and she definitely kept me grounded in a really hard season. So yeah, she's a great person. So thanks for reminding me. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a little bit of your story.
Sounds good. My life can be summed up as a plot twist. So I am a military nomad. My dad was in the military associated with the Navy, and my mom was a Navy civilian. So we moved up and down the East Coast. I learned how to talk in Rhode Island, but I then matriculated to South Carolina and Georgia. So I talk fast with a really Southern accent if I get going really, really well in my jam. So after my mom and dad divorced, then my mom and my sister and I moved to Camden County, Georgia. And that's where I graduated high school in the late 90s. I was most original, so I have embraced my weird for a very long time. So I had plans to get a degree in psychology and to help heal people and enable them to live their best life. And then I had a plot twist. So about a semester or two into college, my best friend from high school died suddenly in a car accident. So I felt the need to get away. So I surprised everyone from my most original life and made a
Yeah.
spontaneous decision to join the Air Force. I was one of the
Wow.
easiest recruits ever. You want to come in? Yes. You smart? Maybe.
But I'm willing to go. Let's go. Yeah.
Exactly,
Aw.
exactly. So I enlisted for 4 years and I was open general. But after basic training, I found out I was in the services squadron. So that was really fun back before it was Force Support Squadron. I'm already dating
Yep.
myself, I'm sure.
I know exactly where you're at. Yeah, that's me too. Yeah.
So I had plans to finish my 4-year enlistment and then do the next best thing that opened its door to me. And then I had another plot twist. So I found my passion, my absolute passion job. Equal opportunity was something that I aligned with, both in my value set, the way that I like to relate to people, the way I like to help people. And so I was able to provide an avenue of redress for unlawful discrimination, sexual harassment. I got to live and breathe my belief that people should be treated with human respect and dignity. I got to
Yeah.
advise leaders at all levels on how to help the organizational effectiveness and, how to better communicate, how to deal with conflict resolution. I became a mediator. I became a true colors facilitator. I became an emotional intelligence facilitator, a resilience trainer. It was amazing. I was able to help people, reach people, develop people, and it really brought me joy. So I stayed in instead of 4 years, over 20 years. So then I retired as a senior master sergeant after 8 bases, 2 deployments, a marriage, a daughter, a divorce, 2 degrees, 5 certifications, lifelong friends, and amazing experiences later. After I retired, I had plans to go back to Camden County, Georgia, be around my mom and my sisters, my nieces and nephews that were there, and just kind of get a civilian job and live my best life. Then I had another plot twist. So 16 job rejections later, I tried to get another job. One of the other ones that I was trying for was at Charleston Air Base as the Equal Opportunity Director. And I was accepted to that job. That was in 2020 when I was accepted. Everybody was having a plot twist during that time frame. So it took quite a long time to actually onboard as the civilian director and go back to my dream job. Then I had another plot twist when about a year into my civilian gig, living my civilian best life jam with my team that was the Supreme team, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So I had metastatic breast cancer, and it does not run in my family. So I was not expecting what came up as my first mammogram. That 40-year-old, you're supposed to get it recommended mammogram. So we thought it was calcium deposits at first. I was not worried about it at all whatsoever. And then I had a biopsy, and then I had another biopsy, and then I had a mediastinoscopy because they did find out that it was cancer, but we thought that it was relatively manageable because it was just in my left breast and my axillary nodes. But then we found out that it was also in my mediastinum. So I did the genetics test and found out that it is not genetic, which is good because, of course, I was feeling guilty at first. Can I hurt my baby? But no, I cannot. And then I found out, obviously, because I'm big into research and fact building around my life, that most cancer is actually not genetic. So that was interesting for me to know and understand. So after that plot twist, I retired medically because it was very hard for me to stay awake a whole day. Exhaustion, fatigue was very much a side effect of my treatment. I'm on an alternative of chemotherapy. It is something that suppresses my cancer, and it's been doing a really good job for about a year and a half. So I was feeling really energetic and still wanted to give back to the world and participate in a meaningful way. And so then I started my Start With Self LLC so I could be able to coach and help people because I am still certified to do many things and I still have the desire to help and love on people and make them feel seen, heard, and valued. So I am doing that. So I'm basically a content creator now in the fields of writing and painting and in a coach for emotional intelligence, true colors, personality assessment, hardiness, resilience, and DISC. So through these plot twists, what helped me maintain that hope for a future, which is usually called optimism, right? And explore the possibilities were four main things. The first is that my faith that God is good and he has a purpose for me. The second is my self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and resilience skills that I've cultivated over my lifetime. These are life skills. And in the military, you get trained on them. And they're like, we're going to develop you as a leader. And it has come in very handy. So if you get those through your organization, don't take them for granted. They're going to help you. And now I coach them. So yay. My third is my desire to help and encourage people to become the best version of themselves. And then the fourth is being an active mom to my favorite person in the world.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Thank you for sharing that, your story. I love the way that you said plot twists because that's exactly what life is, right? I think we have so many ideas or perceptions of what our life will be or, you know, what something will look like, but we don't actually know till we step through the door. And so you've had an amazing ride. I think it sounds, you know, highs and lows and really big and, you know, little things that you've navigated through. I mean, there's probably 12 different lessons that you could teach someone every day just about your like job hunting or your military experience, you know, not to mention your diagnosis and this new season. So that's very powerful, I think. So let's talk about your coaching stuff first, because, you know, kind of like lead from that place. What is the part of coaching that you really, what does that look like when you're working with someone? If someone wanted to work with you, what would that look like? How would that be in a day-to-day conversation? And what tools and resources do you offer them in your coaching program?
It depends which vector they want to choose. True Colors Personality Assessment, there's an online one now. It was my biggest requested resource when I was still part of the military because it really does help teams connect with each other in a very fun way. So understanding yourself helps you understand and connect with others. It helps communication, it helps conflict management, conflict resolution. So I loved to do it in a team setting where we would be there. People could see, you know, how people stacked up against them, who was a high orange, who was a high gold, and helping them kind of laugh and have humor about what was going on and say, oh, now I understand why you, kind of those moments where it just kind of connects. That's beautiful to me. For emotional intelligence, I prefer to do one-on-one coaching where we do assessment that's online. It takes about 20 minutes. And then we really just go through those 15 sub-skills and see how the usage is looking, see how the interplay is looking, and see how they're showing up to the world and if it works for them or if it doesn't, and just massage their style to make it a choice to show up in the way that they're showing up. So if I'm a right fit for someone, then we basically just try and help them become their best self. We open their Johari window, if you will, and make sure that they're being intentional and deliberate in who they're showing you and how they're connecting.
Yeah, I think that's great. Do you do that like the emotional intelligence? We'll pull on that thread for a second. So if I were to come to you for emotional intelligence training or coaching, I would take the assessment and then you would help me like unwrap the results of that, right? Like, what does that look like for me? And then is that more like a one-time coaching thing? Or then do you spend time like we would meet once a week or once a month or something to kind of dig through my the manifestation, I guess, of that, of me in the world? Like, how does that kind of work with your clients?
First of all, I really appreciate your phrasing. And secondly, I can
Thank
help
you.
you understand the report and what it means to you and how you're showing up in that snapshot of time in one session. However, I think it's more meaningful to have me as not your first accountability partner, but just as a check-in point in 2 to 3 weeks after our first meeting. Hey, how is it going?
Yeah.
You know, what we were talking about, how have you worked on it? What are some examples of how that's showing up in your life? And just kind of build on it. Because coaching is a relationship, just like mentoring is a relationship. And so
Right.
I care about the people that are developing with me. And I want them to have the best future possible, best relationships, best connections. And it takes time and commitment, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. Like something like emotional intelligence, I feel like is such a nebulous thing, even though it's not. And there's a lot of science to back it up. Like you're saying, there's a lot of data to back it up. But it still seems like I found in my own leadership journey and self discovery journey, like emotional intelligence is like one of the most important things, right? That we can really learn how to lead ourselves and others well. Like, why do I feel the way I feel? What is that feeling? Like, let me name it. I have a friend who she actually is a therapist and also has stage 4 metastatic breast cancer as well. And, you know, she's been really great at teaching me over the years that every feeling is valid. You don't have to act on it, you know, or the action is important, but just being able to identify what that feeling is, I think, is a process. So having a person come alongside and walk that with you, I think is really, really key, you know?
Oh, yes. 30 years of research and counting, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I like to think of emotions as clues, right? Every emotion that you have in North America, we're really only good at expressing joy, anger, and fear. But there are so many other ones, right, that you can feel. And so being able to name them, like you said, to sit with them, see what they're trying to tell you, and be able to not be emotionally reactive necessarily, but choose your reaction from that emotion and be able to pick it apart. Why are you afraid? Are you fearing rejection? Are you fearing loss? Are you fearing failure? You know, what is that fear stemming from and what is it trying to tell you? Because sometimes fear is helpful. I feel like every emotion is helpful. In my mind, I think about them as little friends or little tiny monsters, and I sit on a bench with them and I'm like, all right, friend, we seem a little bit anxious right now, maybe a little insecure. Am I having any inferiority feelings right now? What are you trying to tell me, hun?
Yeah. And do you think that, I'm switching gears a little bit, but that's so good. That's like that, what's that show, Inside Out, the movie Inside Out, with the little, you know, lady and the joy and the whatever, and they're walking around, and the little guy, the red guy who blows up and angry and he gets all mad. I think that I would know the answer to this, but, and it's really not a yes or no question, but I'm sure it's a resounding yes, but that training that you got in the military and, you know, all those years of helping lead discussions and discovery processes, was that a big part? And has that been a big part of you helping with your diagnosis and just walking through that journey? Like you're saying, having enough self-awareness to be able to sit down and say, okay, friends, let's sit down on the bench because we're having a hard day, and try to be able to unpack that for your mental health as you've been navigating through this.
I'll make it into an easy yes, for sure.
I bet. That's why I was like, this is a dumb question. I think, I mean, there aren't dumb questions, but I'm like, this is like, anyone who's listening to this is screaming yes from, you know, the audience. They're like, yes, the answer is yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's just one of those, back again to like how God, I'm on this journey of like just this purpose journey for myself. And I've been writing, I don't know if I shared it with you when we talked, but I started writing a book. You're a published author, so we can talk about that. But I'm writing my first book about purpose, the pursuit of purpose, and how it causes anxiety. And especially for Christians, right? And trying to break down the psychology and the theology of purpose and what does that really look like for us. And I keep going back to like my friend, you know, with her diagnosis. I keep going back to families I run into in crisis pregnancy outreach center, or, you know, families that I work with who have lost a child through miscarriage or stillborn birth, or, you know, even through abortion, and just watching them go through these really hard things and then still trying to find, we say joy in the journey, you know what I mean? But they're not fun things.
Well, I think people misunderstand what joy is. Happiness is based on what's happening, right? Those feelings of elation, or I just got a new whatever, happiness, happiness, happiness. But joy
Oh,
is enduring, right?
yeah.
Through whatever you're going through, that inner joy, that fruit of the spirit can happen. And it doesn't make sense to people sometimes, but joy can exist in pain, in
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And I was just thinking your faith journey of seeing that, right? God's hand still on your life, even in the midst of really hard things, and how you're navigating through that space. Like giving you all these tools when you're in the military, having like no idea that you were going to enter into this next chapter of your life. But now you've got all of these gifts and treasures, that are helping you in the next season of your life.
Yeah. And like you were alluding to, God purposed it, right? So I see his hand on my life, my entire life, and all of these tools and my message and my purpose. And I believe that everybody has a unique fingerprint that only they can put into the world.
Sure.
Their beliefs, their talents, their personality, their problem-solving style, everything that makes them who they are
Yeah.
best positioned to put that into the world. And God will help you live your purpose for sure. And when God has told me no, or slammed the door in my face, or had those growth moments that were very uncomfortable, and I felt frustrated and I felt angry and I felt alone sometimes, or abandoned, or how can this be your purpose? Those
Yeah.
were my moments that I felt him most in retrospect, because he was showing me, I'm still good, darling. I've still got
Mm.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so good. I do. And I think that's kind of the premise I've been sitting with for several months, is just this like, no matter what is standing in front of us, no matter what hard things come our way, like God has given us promises to live with every day, right? They're like gifts. And
Oh, yes.
sometimes I think we miss them. So it kind of goes back to you. I see that in your coaching business, like you helping people take the lenses and readjust them, like you're right, our own lenses, how we see ourselves, how we see the world, so that we can still continue to grow and, do that. So you've got emotional intelligence and then facilitator, and then you have the True Colors personality test factors that you do. And then you work individually with people, kind of helping them understand, their unique design. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, your books and your writing, and how that your writing kind of journey transpired, and where that fits into this too?
Sure, I would love to. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
believe it or not, I struggled to find my footing after my diagnosis and medical retirement. I felt like I had kind of like this looming expiration date, because cancer is unpredictable. It was growing kind of aggressively. So,
Yeah.
as I was processing that, my therapist asked me, is helping one enough? Because I was used to serving thousands, right? And
Yeah.
being invited to major command functions and teaching people and mentoring people. And I was used to what I was, and I had to get used to what I am now. So I believe helping one is enough. For me, the time and effort is worth it for one person. So I decided to coach and train people with the expertise and the certifications and the HR degrees that I have. So
Yeah.
my first book I actually authored in 2018, because one of my mentors encouraged me to be published before I retired, because it kind of puts your name out there and your brand out there and all that kind of thing. I have a problem with branding because I like way too many things, but but I listened to my mentor and I put it out there. So Humanity's Flaws and How to Overcome Them was my first one in 2018. And then after I felt my treatment was going really well, in this year, I decided that my phrase was going to be to live inspired. So since then, I have published 4 more books through
Wow.
Amazon KDP. And one of them is very biblical. It's Reflection Guide, Start with Self, a reflection guide, and it takes you through a Bible verse and what I think about it. I illustrated it through paintings that I have made, so that was really
Wow.
special to me. And then I made Time with the T's, because I love those positivity signs, and I love just English language in general. So
Yeah.
I wrote it even though nobody asked for it. And I think it's like a toilet book, right? So you're going to read it just when you have some extra time. And so it goes through words that end in TY and make that T sound. And it says, what the definition is and my thoughts about that. And I illustrated that one too. So it was really fun to put together.
Yeah, that's so fun.
Thanks. And then I tried to make a children's book based on diversity, inclusion, and just understanding our multiple portions of what makes us, right? Our race, our color, our religion, our national origin, our personality, our hobbies, our interests can become a connection point to other people. So I rhymed a book. Hopefully that makes sense. It's called Common Threads. I actually made it into an Audible book as well. So I made my first audiobook through that one.
That's so cool.
It was my first children's book, however, so it might be a little bit lofty. My God said that it was missing superheroes. So there is that. But he still said I did a good job. So it was
fine,
awesome.
but no one's flying. Yes. No one flew.
I accept all feedback.
You're like, well, next time someone will fly. Yes.
Exactly.
So
and thank you, babe. My last one was start with self, because obviously that's my whole purpose is to help people with their awareness. And it's a self-discovery through analogies. And that one was really exciting because True Colors allowed me to use some of their intellectual material. My friend Carmen allowed me to use some of her intellectual material via strengths. They do character strengths, which we use in resilience training in the Air Force, allowed me to use some of their intellectual material. So it was really a collaboration to try and get people to understand who they were and kind of peel back the onion. So you're a detective of your own life and just understanding who you are so you can connect with others and you can try and enhance that communication, that hopeful self-regard, right? Where you're confident in who you are and what you bring to the table. And then obviously, when your confidence is up, then your defensiveness goes down. So that one was really fun to put together. And I illustrated that one too sometimes, but sometimes I just used photographs that were interesting that I had in my camera roll.
Yeah, in your repertoire. Yeah, in your collection of things. That's so amazing. I love that. I mean, that's all just been within the last handful of years then that you've written all these books and illustrated them. Have you always been an artist? Have you always been kind of an art person?
I've always been a creator. I don't really feel like I am, this is going to sound very strange, but I think people think that I'm more talented than I really am because I have no formal training. But my therapist helped me understand that that's probably just a minimization of myself just because I compare myself, which is the thief of joy. I completely understand that. I recognize and acknowledge that. But like my friend Elena, she is amazing. I used to want to be a Disney cartoonist, but they would not accept me because I'm not on their level. So that's kind of what I'm thinking in retrospect. But my therapist helped me understand that I can decorate the world. I can use my talents and try and put into the world the thoughts that I have in my head. I have a very distinct style. I don't do realism. It's very cartoony, but it's meaningful to me. So people seem to like it.
I think that's really important because you could take that and apply it to anything in life, right? The comparison mindset. We all get stuck in that. But for some people, I think it's almost like, it stops you like from moving forward in anything, in any of those things, because you don't. I think we live in this weird paradigm. Like I say this a lot, especially as leaders, when we talk about that feedback loop, when we talk about our own self-awareness, like I don't see how I manifest myself on the other side of me. Like I don't know what I look like on the outside. I think I know what I look like, but I don't really. And so that's why it's so important to have that feedback loop. And because of that, we limit ourselves, I think, on so many different levels because we're like, well, I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have a degree. I don't have a whatever. I'm not as fun. I'm not as skinny. I'm not as young. I'm not as old. I'm not as whatever. And, you're kind of saying, no, like, look, this is me, my unique design, and it brings me joy and I offer it to the world. And I think that's awesome. I think that's what we should all strive to do. The world would be a much more beautiful place, I think, if we could all do that. So
I agree with you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I think that's really good. So you talk about, you have a helper, we have a helper, therapist helper, which we love therapists. Shout out to all of our therapist helpers. And then what are some other things that have kind of helped you do that? Because the world could tell you just to sit down. I mean, they could. The world could say, Mindy, you had a good run. You had a successful career. Now you have these other things, the world could tell you just to stop. And you've decided not to do that. So how do you do that every day?
Well, I think it matters. I think how we show up matters, our actions and our words. I really think it's cliche, but true, where what we do now echoes into eternity. And
yeah,
after I'm gone, which is going to happen to everybody, but maybe a little sooner for me, I want to make sure that the love and support and connection that I desired to put into the world is still available to the world. So you can still hear my voice on the YouTube channel. You can still hear me trying to embrace diversity and inclusion on my book, Common Threads. You can still hear me in my books because I write very conversationally in a way that my extroverted self tries to connect with you. And I put a lot of myself vulnerably and authentically into the books because I never want somebody to feel like they're traveling a hard road alone. And even in the brushstrokes of my paintings, you can see me in the love that I have for the world and for people in them.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. And I feel like for the majority of us, I say, it's a lot like they won't ever write a book about us or name a building after us, right? And I think there is a shift in our identity when we talk about legacy, right? Because we talk about legacy a lot. And you're right, for some of us, that looks different. That cliff looks different for each one of us. But I think there is a place where you get to where you're less concerned with that kind of a legacy in our mindset of what success and legacy looks like in terms of fame or fortune or whatever, and you're more concerned with like leaving your fingerprint on the world and whatever that looks like, right? And I feel like as Christians, like that's the ultimate thing that we're called to do, right? To love God with our entire heart and soul, mind, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And you can do that in a billion different ways. It doesn't have to be like it's all of him living through all of us in all of our pieces and parts. And I just think, what you're doing is the epitome of that. Like you're taking your pieces and parts and you're like giving them back to the world. And I think there's great hope in that. And there's great inspiration in that for anyone who's like, maybe I might want to try this thing that I've never tried before. And
Go
you're
for
like,
it, babe. You can do it. I'm rooting for you.
yeah, me too. And that's how I feel too. Like I do things like they don't look great or wonderful. They're kind of clunky and they're messy and they're hard and they make me feel, like you said, all the comparison stuff. But I've learned over the years that you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. So you're coaching and you're writing and you're painting and loving on your families. So what's next in the next season for your coaching business and kind of what does that look like for you?
Well, I think I'm on a steady course right now. I am partnering with some of my friends. I promised them I wouldn't tell on them, so I'm not going to.
That's okay. Yep. You keep your secrets,
Yes. That's part of coaching, right? Like emotional intelligence, those reports are confidential. So have I coached? Yes. Who have I coached? I don't know.
Yeah.
What were their results? I forget.
Yeah. Can neither confirm nor deny. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I'm CIA, but not really.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You kind of are CIA with people's hearts, though. That's the thing.
And it's a lockbox. Once people trust me, that's it, man. That's it.
Yeah. That's good stuff. That's good. So you're working with some friends in some undisclosed locations and then working on some projects. And then you're building your coaching business, your Start With Self, which is really good. Do you think that you have any more books? So you've got your Start With Self book. Do you plan on any more book projects in the near future?
It's funny that you say that because yes.
Really?
I am working on a companion guide for grief because I think that grief is hard and people deal with it in different ways. And if you see somebody walking down the street, they have probably lost something very important to them or someone very important to them. And so finding a voice that can speak to them and bring them light, love, and connection when they feel like they're drowning would be really important to me. Yeah. It's a little bit of a distinct point of view because I'm kind of writing it as a love letter to my family and especially to my daughter.
Yeah, which has got to be really hard, like good hard.
Yes, it is a good hard because it's kind of like I can say goodbye before I have to.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah. I say that prayers are eternal. They don't expire. And so I lost my dad a few years ago. He had gotten sick, but he would, overnight just got the phone call at 4 a.m. kind of deal. So we had time to prepare mentally because he was in kidney failure and had diabetes and heart failure and kidney failure. So there was like this slow erosion after like 10 years. And then we thought it was going to look a certain way. I thought it was going to look a certain way, and it didn't look like that at all. I thought there'd be more time to do all those things, and there wasn't. So I try to live from that place of gratitude without it being consuming, which I can only on one small scale try to even empathize with, like your journey. You're trying to stay present in the moment and find the joy and give a hope. But then there's the reality of, what you're standing in front of every day, and you're trying to prepare, right? Well, for the people that you love. Yeah. I can see that. And so I say that prayers are eternal, they don't expire.
And
I tell my
kids for sharing that with me.
Oh, you're welcome. But I think that it's important for people to really think that or see that or realize that.
Gratitude is powerful. And I want to make sure that we're saying we're not talking about toxic positivity. Oh, I got my leg amputated. That was the best day ever. We are not talking about that. We're talking about staying growth oriented and knowing that there's something to learn with everything that happens to your life. There's something to take away from it, right? Whether it's a better communication, some humorous anecdote that you can use a little bit later, or just being able to stay mindful and present and grateful for the air that I breathe, the house that I live in, the dogs that I have, the time that I have. There's usually so much more than you can be grateful for than what you might want to cry about. But crying is cathartic too. I do that.
Yeah, I cry a lot. I do. I cry probably more than I do other things now, except for drink coffee. Probably drinking coffee and crying are the same thing. Yeah, like I think it's really good. And it's funny, when I was, younger, I didn't nearly cry as much as I cry now, but I do cry a lot now. My one friend calls me her weepy friends, and there's so much in the world. There's so much to be thankful for, but then for me, it's the hurt of the world too. Just the people being in that space. And
empathy can be overwhelming, and connecting with people authentically, like empaths do, can feel overwhelming. So making sure that you maintain your healthy boundaries and know when you need downtime for yourself, and keeping that space where you can stay connected with the appreciation of art, beauty, things that you love, that can definitely reconnect you to that positivity and optimism and gratitude and your zen. That's what I've had to do when I feel overtaxed or just feeling like the world has so much negative and I need to counteract it with something.
Yeah, that makes really good sense. And I think learning, like you had said, the pain, there's still being able to work through the pain of whatever that is, the pain of the loss, the pain of the grief, the pain of the situation is a real thing. So not numbing your feelings and acting like it's not. The pain of losing a job, the pain of losing a child, the pain of whatever that is. I feel like that's the essence of like this whole like leadership self-discovery thing. If we take it back to leadership, like how do you lead yourself and others well? Will you do that first from that place of just being humble and realizing that when it's bad, it's kind of bad, and it's actually bad, and not, like you said, just coding it over with a shiny, be like, it's going to be great. I remember there was a season where I was working with some special operators who were like, I say heroes and legends. I just got to do their Excel spreadsheets. So it wasn't like I just following them around with a note, but they were just amazing people. And we were trying to solve a really hard problem. And I just remember one day looking at them and I was like, no one's ever solved this problem before. Like, it's actually physically a problem that no human being has ever been able to solve. So the fact that it's hard, it's okay because it is actually hard. And I feel like when someone gives you that, like freedom to know that, no, it's actually hard. There's like a release that happens where you're just like, oh, it is hard. Oh, this was heavy. Oh, I am tired. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And then knowing those kind of, weaknesses and fears and insecurities helps you not project them onto others. And once you acknowledge that emotion when it's small and reasonable and you can still work through it, helps it not turn into this big yelling monster that, morphs into something else that's very unreasonable and it's very hard to relate to.
Yeah. And then you have an entire organization that's got a toxic culture or, not psychologically safe. That was, we had another guest author pair who wrote a book, The Psychological Safety Playbook, and they came on and we were talking about what psychological safety is and isn't. And I was like, this is fascinating. But I think it goes along the same with like emotional intelligence. There's a right way and a wrong way to go about it. So no, I think that's really great. And I think that the love letter and the grief that you're writing, it's very much needed in the world because we grieve so many things that we don't know it's grief. We don't even know that. So the more I think people are educated about what grief is and giving yourself the freedom, I think that's hugely important too. Very cool. Well, we'll keep looking for your book as it comes out and your coaching program as it continues to grow. If people wanted to reach out and connect with you, how would they be able to find you?
Well, I have a website. It's melindamindyfinholmemorris.com. You will notice that I use Melinda because it's my formal name. So everybody that knows me as Melinda will still know that it's me. But everybody that really knows me knows that I go by Mindy.
Very good.
Finholm was my maiden name and Morris is my last name. On Instagram, I'm Mindy Magic One. On LinkedIn, I'm Melinda, Mindy, Finholm Morris. If you're interested in my art, I'm on Pinterest, and that's at Finholm Morris. And then I have 5 books on Amazon. If you look at Mindy Finholm Morris, then they'll pop up for you there. And then I have a article in Coping Magazine that's cancer resource that I have found to be quite helpful. So that's kind of how to connect with me right now.
That's good stuff. Yeah, that's good stuff. And I was going to ask you this and I'll kind of like put it back. Do you find that, metastatic breast cancer community or survivors, or it seems to be a pretty close group, but do you find that like connection in being able to help? I'm just thinking through your like coaching business and the things like you just have so many resources and tools and so much wisdom to give the world. And so I think that, offering those women who are going through the same thing, I can see how much of an impact that would be for them. So I don't know if you're doing that or not, or if you've reached those communities and been able to do that, but I could just see how you speaking with them and giving words of encouragement and tools and resources to help them would be a powerful thing for them.
I totally could, but no, I have not. My mom actually goes to the cancer group in her church, but I find my coping mechanism is more intellectual. So for instance, when I had my ovaries and fallopian tubes removed, I knew that my cancer is estrogen based. So if you take away what it's eating, then it will help me live longer. And then I don't have to have the letrozole shot. Letrozole is what I take every day. It was a different Lupron shot. Then less, chemicals in my body. So I researched it. I made sure that I knew what to expect, how long I was going to need to get better and all that kind of stuff. Same with my left breast, right? So that was the origin of my cancer, and it's the only place that has gotten smart to the treatment that I'm on right now. So even though my cancer is growing in my left breast again, as long as it hasn't reached the axillary nodes or started growing again in the lymph nodes above my collarbone or in my mediastinum, then I am able, as my daughter calls, to have a uniboob. And then I'll have like a bilateral mastectomy and what that means and how long it's going to take for that to recover from and be able to Zoom again and help people in a meaningful way again. So I'm very intellectually driven when it comes to things. I'm very curious. I love science very much. I find it fascinating. And I'm very grateful that this cancer is happening to me instead of somebody else that I care about and love, because I know I can't fix it and it's me. If I see somebody in pain, I want to help, I want to fix, I want to take care of, I want to, adapt to make it as good as I possibly can for them. So I realize the struggle that people have seeing people in pain and seeing people have an expiration date sooner and go through those feelings that it's not fair, that anger, that frustration, that denial, that grief cycle, right? That Kubler-Ross told us about a long time ago.
That's right.
So I honor that it is hard, literally, for everyone that it touches. It is not an easy road, but we're still here. We're still making the world a better place. We're still connecting. We're still loving. We're still kind. We're still compassionate. And everybody has a purpose. And literally, helping one person is enough. So let's do it. Let's connect.
Yeah, I think that's so good. No, you're exactly right. One person is enough. I agree with you. Long time ago, when I started doing different things with the Lord, I felt like that was the message that the Lord laid on my heart. Like, what will you do with the gifts that I gave you? And the gifts are the humans that are standing in front of us every day.
Yes.
Those are the gifts. I had a pastor say a long time ago, don't hurt their hearts. And I've tried to, with all of my being, that's why I say leadership is very much like parenting, because you're entrusted with the care and safekeeping of these people. And so it's like you said, I think it goes back to the promises of God. Like he gave you promises. They're right in front of you every day. They're just right there. You can just reach out and hold them. And for anyone who's struggling with any big thing, but something like this, which like you said, it's a different cliff. It's in front of you every day. Yeah. The necessity to reach out and grab it, I think, is probably something I can never imagine. So I think that you have great hope to offer the world and great wisdom that the Lord has given you through your military career, through your faith journey. So I just pray that you keep doing that as much as your health and the Lord will allow. So that leads me to my final question. What's your why? So how do you keep showing up every day, even when it hurts?
My daughter really helps me focus, right? So I want her to know that she's worth the time and effort. And then I tried as long as I could to stay as healthy as I could.
Yeah.
And she's loved. She's important. She's my favorite person. And I believe in her future. And even broader, right? I want, when I get to heaven, for God to be able to say, well done, Chica. Welcome home. Know that everything mattered.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that is all that any human being could ever ask for, is that we leave a legacy of love to the people that aren't here, that when we're gone. I say that to my kids a lot, like back to the storing up prayers in heaven. I want them to know that, on the days when I'm no longer here, that they have a God who absolutely loves them.
Oh, yes.
And a mom who prayed 1,000 prayers for them. Yeah. So I think if you can give that to the world, then not much else we could ask for. But I think that's amazing. And again, I truly honor your life and the things that you're doing. Just truly do hope and pray that you continue to see the joy and the beauty of your life and all the things that you're doing each and every day. That means a lot. So, yeah. Well, thank you for coming on the show. We'll put all your links in the show notes so anybody can reach out to you. They can follow you on the gram and LinkedIn and all the things, and your YouTube channel, and definitely check out her books on Amazon. I've already been over there and put a few in my cart. So I look forward to seeing the next season of whatever this is that the Lord has for you. So thank you, dear friend, for coming today. It's been a blessing.
Thank you for having me so much. I believe in what you're doing. You are making the world a better place and putting messages out there that people can definitely learn from. You're making a positive difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Have an amazing day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. This podcast was brought to you by our amazing producers at Wildfire Creative Company. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please hop over to iTunes or Spotify, subscribe, rate it, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. And make sure you come back. We'll talk more about the essence and elements of leadership on the first and third Thursday of every month. If you enjoyed today's show, you can head over to danitacummins.com/podcast and gain access to additional free resources. But make sure you subscribe to our newsletter so you can stay up to date on the latest shows. Have an amazing day. Talk to you soon.